Every single weekend, millions of people wake up, fire up their lawnmowers, and spend hours methodically destroying one of the most nutritionally dense plants that has ever existed on the surface of this earth, without knowing it. Smiling. Some of them proud of the perfectly trimmed lawn they leave behind. I know that sounds insane, but stay with me for the next few minutes, because what you're about to discover today is going to permanently change the way you look at your backyard. At the sidewalk. At every empty lot you've ever walked past without a second thought. This plant, right here, this so-called weed, this number one enemy of the perfect American lawn, this living thing you poison, pull out, and battle with industrial herbicide every spring. It contains more vitamin C per gram than an orange. It has more iron than spinach, more calcium than broccoli, more beta-carotene than carrots. And it has been used as food, medicine, and survival nutrition for over 2,000 years by civilizations across every continent. Its name is Taraxacum officinale. You know it as the dandelion. And before this video ends, you're going to know exactly how to harvest it, how to preserve it, and how to use every single part of it, root, leaf, flower, and stem, to turn it into a real practical resource for self-sufficiency. Not theory, not internet romanticism. Concrete practice. The kind of knowledge entire populations depended on to survive, and that your generation was systematically convinced to eradicate. So before you close this video thinking it's just another plant video, give me 2 minutes. Because the story I'm going to tell you today involves wars, the chemical industry, government propaganda, and the greatest food deception of the last 100 years. And it starts right now. Let's start with the numbers, because I know you need evidence before you believe anything I say, and I respect that. So here is raw data. Source: the USDA National Nutrient Database, the nutritional database of the United States Department of Agriculture. No filtering, no manipulation. 100 grams of raw dandelion greens contain 35 milligrams of vitamin C. The same amount of raw orange contains around 53 milligrams. You're going to tell me the orange wins. But wait, the orange is composed of 87% water. When you correct for caloric density and dry weight, dandelion delivers more vitamin C per calorie consumed than any citrus fruit you can name. And that's just the beginning. That same handful of dandelion gives you 535% of your daily vitamin K requirement. That is not a typo. 535%. In terms of micronutrient density, we are talking about a plant that rivals any superfood you buy in capsule form at the pharmacy, for $0, straight from the ground. But what fascinates me isn't only what it contains, it's what it represents from the standpoint of real survival. If you are building an emergency garden, developing a homestead, thinking about genuine food resilience for your family, dandelion is not an optional plant. It is a foundational plant. And the reason is simple. It grows where nothing else grows. In compacted soil, in cracked sidewalks, in dry, depleted ground where you could plant almost anything else and lose it entirely. There are historical records of dandelion being harvested and consumed during the Great Depression when entire families had no access to fresh produce. During World War II, European governments actively encouraged the public to forage dandelion through national nutrition campaigns. That wasn't folklore. That was public health policy. Governments telling their citizens, go outside, find this plant, eat it, because your survival may depend on it. And today you pay for herbicide to kill it in your yard. Now I want to show you something most people never stop to consider. When we talk about dandelion, we're talking about a plant where there is no disposable part. Root, stem, leaf, flower. Every centimeter of this plant has a documented function, a nutritional use, a medicinal application, a practical survival value. I'm going to walk you through each one. The leaves are the most obvious entry point. Young leaves, harvested before the plant flowers, have a mild, slightly bitter flavor and can be eaten raw in salads mixed with other greens, or sautéed exactly like any dark leafy green. Think spinach, but with a superior nutritional profile. Older leaves intensify in bitterness, which sounds like a flaw but is actually a signal. Bitterness in a plant almost always indicates a concentration of bioactive compounds and antioxidants. A 60-second blanch in boiling water removes most of the bitterness without destroying the nutrients. From a self-sufficiency standpoint, the leaves are your first resource because they are available for nearly the entire year in temperate climates. In early spring, when the soil is still cold and almost nothing else is growing, dandelion is already there, already green, already ready. When every other plant in your garden is still dormant, dandelion is giving you food. The stem is hollow and produces a milky white sap when broken, one of the most reliable identification markers for the plant. That sap contains bitter compounds known as lactocopicrin and Taraxacum, which preliminary studies associate with anti-inflammatory and digestive properties. The most common traditional use was applying the sap directly to warts and minor skin inflammations. This isn't modern medicine, this is ethnobotany with 2,000 years of documented human use behind it. The root is where most people stop looking, and it's exactly where the most interesting resource lives from a long-term survival standpoint. The dandelion taproot can reach 30 to 45 centimeters deep into the soil. That's not a coincidence. This root is actively extracting minerals from layers of soil that surface plants simply cannot access: calcium, magnesium, potassium, zinc. The root pulls all of it up and distributes it to the leaves above. When dandelion dies and its root decomposes, those deep minerals become available in the topsoil for every plant around it. Dandelion literally fertilizes its neighbors. But the most practically impactful use of the root is something else entirely. Roasted dandelion root produces a completely caffeine-free coffee substitute with an earthy, slightly bitter flavor that was documented as an emergency beverage during food shortages in wartime Europe. Not a metaphor. History. And the root contains inulin, a prebiotic fiber that directly feeds the beneficial bacteria in your gut. In a self-sufficiency scenario where access to probiotics and digestive supplements is limited, the dandelion root is your intestinal pharmacy. The flower is yellow, open, and almost universally ignored. But it's edible, rich in lutein and zeaxanthin, antioxidants associated with eye health, and carries a strategic value in any self-sufficient system that most people completely overlook. The dandelion is one of the first plants to flower in early spring, when bees emerge from winter with low energy reserves and almost no nectar is available anywhere in the environment. A blooming dandelion is a fuel station for pollinators at the exact moment they need it most. Without pollinators, there is no harvest. Without early bloomers, there are fewer pollinators. Plant dandelion, and you are actively investing in every other crop you grow. Dandelion wine has been produced for centuries across the United Kingdom and Central Europe. It isn't a curiosity. It was part of the domestic production chain of a self-sufficient household, a way to use the flower harvest, preserve it, and create something of value with zero external inputs. Now I need to tell you a story that is going to change how you see your lawn, permanently. Because the war against the dandelion was not natural. It didn't emerge from nowhere. It was constructed, deliberately, by people with financial interest in the outcome. Before 1900, the American lawn did not exist as an aesthetic ideal. Yards were functional spaces, vegetable gardens, mixed plantings, working land. Dandelion was planted intentionally. European colonizers brought dandelion seeds to North America on purpose. They needed it. For food, for medicine, for tea, for fabric dye, for livestock feed. It was a first-tier utility plant, something you made sure you had, not something you tried to get rid of. After World War II, something shifted. The factories producing chemical compounds for military use, herbicides, pesticides, defoliating agents, needed a new market. The war was over. Industrial demand was gone. But the factories remained. The capital remained. And the solution turned out to be elegant from a business perspective. Create a domestic enemy. Sell the average American the idea that a perfect lawn, uniform, green, variation-free, was a symbol of respectability, of care, of social status. And the dandelion, which had fed generations, was reframed as the embodiment of neglect. The sign of the neighbor who doesn't care about the community. Magazines, television commercials, newspaper articles, all synchronized to manufacture a cultural perception that had not existed before. It was one of the most successful marketing campaigns in agricultural history, and it worked so well that within a single generation, Americans had internalized it completely. They stopped questioning it. Their children inherited it as fact. Think about what that actually means. An entire generation of people was trained to freely poison the most nutritionally dense food growing in their own yards, paying for herbicide, paying for fertilizer to grow grass, which you cannot eat, replacing a functional food system with an ornamental carpet. And we inherited that system without ever questioning it. I'm not here to sell paranoia. I'm here to present historical evidence that decisions about what gets called a weed and what gets called a useful plant are not neutral. They have authors. They have beneficiaries. And those of us serious about genuine self-sufficiency have an obligation to question every single one of them. Enough history. Let's get to what actually matters. What do you do from here? Start with the foundation. Correct identification. Because foraging without safe identification isn't self-sufficiency. It's recklessness. Dandelion has identification features that make it one of the safest wild plants for beginners to learn. First, the stem. Always hollow. Always produces milky white sap when broken. Second, the rosette. Leaves grow directly from the ground in a basal rosette. No lateral branches, no aerial branching stem. Third, the flower. Always a single flower head per stem. Always yellow. If you see branching, it is not dandelion. There are similar-looking plants, like cat's ear, Hippocaris radicata, that are harmless, but have a solid, slightly branching stem. The golden rule, hollow stem plus white sap plus basal rosette plus single flower equals dandelion. All four present. Harvest. Any doubt, leave it. On where to harvest. Never collect near busy roads. The plant absorbs heavy metals from soil and air. Never collect from lawns that have received herbicide. Organochlorine compounds persist in the leaves. The practical rule? If a lawn is perfectly uniform with no dandelion surviving at all, it has been treated. Open fields, organic wasteland, forest edges, those are your targets. If you want to integrate dandelion into your production system, and I strongly recommend you do, it's important to understand why it is a strategic ally beyond nutrition. The deep taproot functions as a system of passive subsoil mining. It breaks through compacted soil, creating natural drainage channels that directly benefit every plant around it. It pulls minerals from layers that shallow-rooted plants will never reach and deposits them at the surface when it decomposes. In permaculture terms, dandelion is what's called an accumulator plant, a plant that actively builds soil wealth for the entire system. To plant intentionally, scatter seeds on the soil surface in early spring or fall. No deep covering needed, 1 to 2 centimeters at most. The plant tolerates soil pH between 5.5 and 7.5, meaning it thrives in acidic soils where many other plants fail entirely. It tolerates drought. It tolerates partial shade. It returns every year without replanting. It requires nothing from you once established. If you are building a food forest or a permaculture system, dandelion belongs in the ground cover layer. It works for the health of the entire system without demanding anything in return. It is the definition of a system plant. A truly self-sufficient person doesn't only eat what's fresh. They process, preserve, and store. Here are the 4 methods I use to have dandelion available year-round, regardless of season. Dried leaves. Wash the leaves, dry them completely, and dehydrate at 38 degrees Celsius for 4 to 6 hours, or hang in bunches in a well-ventilated space for 5 to 7 days. Crush and store in sealed glass jars. 1 tablespoon of dried dandelion leaf steeped in hot water for 10 minutes produces a tea documented in European herbal medicine for supporting kidney and liver function. Shelf life. 12 to 18 months in a cool, dark, dry location. Roasted root coffee. Harvest roots in autumn. When the plant draws its energy back underground, inulin concentration is at its peak. Wash, slice into 3 to 5 millimeter rounds. Roast in an oven at 175 degrees Celsius for 20 to 25 minutes until dark and fragrant. Grind coarsely. Brew as you would drip coffee, French press, or percolator. Zero caffeine. High inulin content, the ritual preserved. This was the emergency coffee of European families during World War II. Not nostalgia, but engineering for survival. Flour vinegar. Fill a glass jar with fresh flowers collected in the morning when active compound concentration is highest. Cover with raw apple cider vinegar. Seal and leave in a dark location for 14 days. Strain and store. The resulting vinegar serves as a dressing, a food preservative, and a digestive tonic. It is also one of the simplest ways to preserve the antioxidants from the flour for months without any special equipment. Blanched and frozen leaves. Blanch the leaves for 60 seconds in boiling water. Transfer immediately to an ice bath. Drain. Squeeze to remove excess water. Portion into silicone trays or freezer bags. Frozen, they cook exactly like spinach and maintain nutritional value for up to 12 months. This is the entry method. Fast, no special equipment, zero waste. If you do nothing else from this video, do this. Real self-sufficiency doesn't begin with buying seeds from a specialty catalog. It doesn't begin with a survival garden kit. It begins with seeing what is already around you. With unlearning what was taught about what has value and what is disposable. With stopping the war against systems that existed long before you arrived and will remain long after you're gone. The dandelion survived the Roman Empire. It survived the Black Death. It survived 2 world wars. It survived decades of industrial herbicide. And it is in your yard right now, waiting for you to stop mowing it and start seeing it for what it actually is. So here is your concrete challenge for this week. The next time you see a dandelion in your yard in a cracked sidewalk growing through a fence, don't walk over it. Crouch down, look at it closely, recognize what you're looking at. A plant with 2,000 years of proven human use behind it. A subsoil pharmacy, a food source that preceded supermarkets by millennia and will still be growing when the last shelf is empty. If this video changed the way you think about the plants around you, subscribe, because next week we're going deep on another forgotten crop. A root that stores more calories per square foot than the potato, survives frosts of -20 degrees, and most people have never heard of. I'll see you there.